Welcome to this episode of the Redhawks Coaches Corner. My name is Michelina Friss and I'm going to be your host today. We are sitting on the campus of Roberts Wesleyan College in the Roost, and with me I have the head coach of the women's tennis team, Mr. Tom Linhart. Tom, thank you very much for being with us today. So we're just going to sit down, we're just going to have a little talk and, talk a little bit about the tennis program.
Sounds great.
So just to dive right into it, can you first just tell us a little bit about, what is your background with tennis? Were you ever a player? How long have you been coaching? How'd you end up being here at Roberts?
Oh, wow. How long do we have? I've been coaching 48 years.
It's a long time.
I'm older than dirt. Originally I played baseball in college, and I have two coaching careers. My first coaching career was in baseball. I coached in a high school I taught at, and then at a junior college, and then I was the coach at the University of Buffalo. Then we moved. My wife and I relocated to Rochester, so I stopped coaching for a few years, and then picked up again coaching high school tennis. And then after I retired in 2004, I went to St. John Fisher, where I was the assistant coach for 8 years.
Okay.
And then I came here for 2 years as the assistant, and then took over, and this is my 8th year.
8th year?
Here, so yeah. So I've always played tennis, but I was a baseball player in my earlier days.
So you're dual, a dual coach, got the baseball back.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very
Coaching's very similar, though. I mean, you're still dealing with individual personalities and trying to mold them into a team. So that's why coaches all are so similar, because
Gotcha.
The act of coaching, is pretty consistent between sports, and then of course you add in the skill level, the skill sets of your sport. And
Gotcha.
So.
You wouldn't really think so between tennis and baseball because they're really different sports. Tennis, I think, is looked at as more of an individual sport. Baseball, obviously the team, the 9 players. But you feel like there's a lot of similarities between coaching both of them?
Skill sets, there's a great deal of similarity between a lot of the skills in baseball and a lot of skills in tennis.
Okay.
I always say, if I have somebody who's starting tennis, I like it if they have a background in the throwing sport.
Okay.
So it's softball, baseball, because it's a projecting and receiving.
Gotcha.
So they're very similar, and then of course there's the hardest part though is that tennis players all grow up or all develop as individuals, so they don't care much about anybody else. They're worried about their ranking, their place, their development, their practice.
Right.
And you get them here, and the hardest part about coaching tennis in college is getting all these highly motivated, I'm going to say egocentric kids to care about the team first.
Right.
And if you can make that click, then you've got a real potential for a successful season. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most impressed about the women's team here at Roberts.
Gotcha.
We've taken, young ladies who would never have met each other. They're from all over the world, and they come together and they immediately learn to care about one another, learn to put the team ahead of themselves, and I think that's been a great. I think that's been the best part of the catalyst for their success over the years, is that they do that a lot better. The men's team, a little harder to get them to give up their egos, but the women have done a great job. This is a wonderful group of young ladies we have here.
So you've already kind of hit on my next question a little bit. And this is the question that I was the most eager about asking about and hearing what your answer was. So just like you've already said, you have players from all over the globe.
Yeah.
You have 8 women listed on your roster this year, and you have a player from the Netherlands, you have a player from Canada, Spain, Botswana, Nepal, and Germany. That's not just Europe or Africa, like I already said, it's from all over. So you being the head coach, just tell me a little bit, what's that like for you to have players that are from completely different cultures? More than likely, English is not their first language, even though they might be fluent in it. It still is their second language. They might be accustomed to different kind of coaching, and they're adjusting to all the changes that they have coming here to the U.S. From their home country. That must be a really kind of interesting thing for you.
It's the best part of the job, to tell you the truth, because of all the other teams I've coached, whether they were baseball teams or tennis teams, they've all been mostly American kids. Culture's the same. There's some advantages of that. But the best part of this job is meeting kids from all over the world and connecting with them and watching them adapt to coming to the United States, because they all want to come to the United States. This is the place where you can take your tennis skills and turn them into an education. The rest of the world doesn't have college sports. So they'll come, and that's the best part. I mean, I've had kids from not only these, but in my 10 years here, from South America, from Australia, from all over. And that's watching them adapt, watching them, I'm impressed with the fact that they all speak multiple languages.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I'm the only one that is unilingual. The rest of them speak 4 and 5.
Right.
And I'm impressed that they're coming here and going to college in their second language,
right.
and they're terribly successful. I mean,
right.
The women last couple of years have been ITA Scholar athlete teams, which means they have to have GPAs above 3.25, and many of them are above 3.5. So that's what's amazing.
Yeah.
That you can come from another culture and speaking a different language, and then come over here and within a couple months adapt to college level work in another language.
Absolutely.
They're amazing people.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. So I recently had one of the former men's players explain to me, and this was something I was always curious about, and he kind of gave me the answer, which I found so interesting, is that in other countries, like you already said, it's not really not existent that at the college level, like you pair, an education like with the sport. You have your club team on the side, and then you go to college. Like if you were to go to a teacher and say, oh, I have to leave a little bit early because the tennis team, we're away this weekend, they wouldn't even know what you were talking about because it's non-existent. So they make that jump to come over here to the U.S. to play, so they can get their education and they can play a sport. And then you, obviously being the head coach, get the pleasure of witnessing people coming from all that diverse background. So all that being said, what's recruiting like for you? Do you just kind of jet off to Europe for a month
wish.
on Robert's dime?
My budget generally doesn't let me jet off anywhere. Most of the recruiting in all the rest of the world, as you said, there's, education and sports are separate. There's no connection between them. So the advantage is that the international students have to decide very early what sport they want to play, because it's expensive to be a member of a club. So their parents pretty much
they're
make
groomed
them
from
decide.
young. Yeah.
So most of my players have been playing tennis at the club level and taking lessons since they were 5 years old. And they always known they wanted to play tennis, and they've devoted themselves and worked at it. So American kids generally don't do that. We still have a culture where kids can play 2 and 3 sports. And so when you have this pool of talent in the rest of the world that has been so focused on their sport, and then they want to come to the United States because it's a place where they can parlay their skills into an education, it makes recruiting easier than it sounds.
Okay.
There are coaches at the Division I level, and some that jet off all over the world, and they keep sending me Facebook posts to make me jealous.
Must love seeing those.
Yeah, this is where we are in Italy now. We don't have to do that, because each of the countries of the world have multiple, I guess we'll call them agencies, groups of people whose business is to connect them with us. So
Okay.
I must get across my desk on my computer in the course of a week, maybe 50 kids from around the world that are interested in, now some of them are just fishing, seeing what's out there.
Right,
Some have
they're
done
browsing.
their homework, So the browsers we sort of delete, but the kids that have done their homework and they're interested here, then we can pursue them. And I'll tell you, Skype and Facebook or FaceTime and all that has made it very easy, because now I Skype with the kid and I meet their parents and we have multiple conversations, which I wouldn't have had maybe 8-10 years ago when it wasn't so prevalent. So
It's amazing what technology can do, what can enable you to do.
Yeah, like I have, I can talk with kids in Australia
Right.
as long as one of us wants to stay up till 11 o'clock at night or 1 in the morning. But that's what's so easy. So it isn't as hard that way as it sounds. The hard part is there's competition for these students.
Right.
One of the freshmen I brought in from Scotland on my men's team this year was recruited by 5 or 6 other schools.
Wow.
So there's some gamesmanship in it. I mean, not with the kid, but in the fact that you're competing against a lot of other schools. I mean, but the process, we never leave our office pretty much.
Wow.
Most of us, because it's become so technologically based, and it's become so well organized at the other end that you don't even have to search for kids.
Gotcha. Very interesting to know.
I wish my budget would allow me to go to England and to Europe or to South America or something like that. But
you never know. Maybe sometime in the future.
Well,
you can always hope, right?
That'll have to take it after I retire. All my players have said you have to come visit, which means I would have to take a whirlwind tour around the world.
You have multiple places where you could go hang out at their house. You're you're set up.
There are some residual advantages to coaching.
There you go. Very nice. Well, thanks for shedding some light on that part of it.
Yep.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is that you have 2 returning players this year for their senior season. You have Andrea Gallardo and Ntabi Mogapodi from Botswana, and they made second team ECC all-conference last year. So can you just talk a little bit about what was it that, what kind of characteristics, maybe on the court and even off the court as well, do you think they had that enabled them to get that recognition and have that success?
Well, that's easier question to answer than you think. One, they're both highly skilled tennis players.
Okay.
2, they're both very coachable. And 3, they both have a lot of experience playing, which means that playing in our conference or in the East region, which is extremely high-level tennis, isn't intimidating. We get some players who will come in and the level, often the freshmen will come in as talented as they are, but the level of competition sort of overwhelms them for a semester or so. Not these 2. And Tabby plays for Botswana's Fed Cup team. So
wow.
She plays all over the world, and Andrea has traveled all over playing.
Wow.
So they come with a lot of experience, but they're also very mature young ladies. They're great people. They really have their heads on right, and that helps them because they don't get too down or too up or too into themselves or too, so they have the ability to handle the pressures of that competition.
Very nice.
And that's one of the things we look at. And one of the things that's so nice about the women's team is they all come from different backgrounds, but they all come from really strong families. They're not all 2-parent families, but they all come from families that are extremely supportive, and they're all very close with their family.
Wow.
And they maintain those relationships, while they're here. They're Skyping and, like we said, FaceTiming and all that. But they're just, those 2 really are the complete package, and they've.
Must be a joy to coach both of them. Must make it fun.
Yeah, they are fun. It's fun to coach all of them, even the ones that are kind of just, still like deer in the headlights with the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch them grow, and sometimes their growth is a little bit exponentially faster. But again, I think it goes back to how well this particular group of young ladies have molded into, I think, a friendship. They're really, there's. You often hear, well, how do you handle all the drama? And there have been years where, drama is up, drama is down. This year they're all very focused on what we as a team want to do.
It's good to hear.
And I think that's what's going to make them, that and their talent is going to give them the opportunity to be pretty successful in a very tough conference and an extremely competitive region. We go down to New York City to National Tennis Center where they just played the U.S. Open on Friday, and we get to play. It's a wonderful experience. But the competition is amazing.
Wow.
It is,
It's exciting.
It is. It's a good time.
Very
it's a good
nice.
time.
Very nice. So one final last question for you to wrap the actual interview. What are you just hoping overall for all of your women this season? Like when you get to the end of the season and, if you can say, we accomplished A, B, and C, so therefore we've had a successful season, what would that A, B, and C be for you?
Well, there's, when we look at our goals, we have process goals and results kind of things. I think for all of them, I would like them to have had fun, first of all, because that's why you're playing the sport. It is still a game. I would like them to be better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning of the year. And I would like them to have grown as people. Now, as a team, our goals, if we can all do that, our goals will be, we'd love to qualify for the East Coast Conference Championships. We've missed those by one spot. We'd love to qualify for the NCAAs. We've had a couple years where we've been a spot out of that. So, we know we're close, and I think that will motivate them to put a little extra work in. But I just think they're already successful. I mean, the fact that they're here, they're doing what they're doing, they've managed to use their tennis skills to help pay for their education. They're competing at a high level. I mean, in the United States, only 5% of all the people who ever play tennis ever play at college. And in the world, that number is even less.
Wow.
So it's, the fact that they're doing this puts them in a pretty elite group as it is.
Yeah.
So success that way, in my mind, they've already achieved it. But, now they've, they're going to come out with degrees. They're going to come out with experiences that most people would never have. I mean,
exactly.
I'm never going to, I have a passport that has absolutely no stamps in it, because I don't travel. Theirs are like...
It's coming later.
Yeah.
It's coming later.
Theirs are like, full, and I'm a little jealous. But they're already successful. And it's just a matter now of do they want, how far can they carry that success?
Absolutely.
They're going to be good. They're wonderful people. They really are.
So as you already know, I try my best to keep as up to date as possible on the team. So I would love to hear that you guys made it to the NCAA tournament at the end, and so you tell them, and at the very least they have one fan who's rooting for them and want to hear it.
Good.
So it is tradition here on the Coach's Corner shows that we always end with 3 trivia questions.
Sure.
So before we let you leave, we'll finish with these and we'll see how well you do.
Oh my God. Okay.
So no pressure.
No.
So here we go. So we've talked about how your players, they come from all over the world. Can you tell me who has traveled the farthest to be here at Roberts?
On the women's team or the men's team?
On the women's team.
On the women's team, it would be Vijisha Sharetha. She's come from Lalitpur, Nepal, which is right outside Kathmandu.
Now, I will tell you, and we can verify this after, I actually went on Google.
Googled them?
I can't come on here and ask you this without it. It said Ntabi Mogapodi, who coming from Botswana. It said 12,910 kilometers, and the individual, I'm not even going to try her name, from Nepal, it said it was about 10,000 miles.
Oh, so kill me for a couple thousand miles.
So we'll give you half a point.
Okay, I get half a point on that one.
Okay, can you tell me what country the dish, I might not get the pronunciation correct, rouladen comes from?
Netherlands.
Really good guess, but no. It's German food. It involves wrapping thinly sliced meat, usually beef, but also veal or pork, around a filling of bacon or pork belly. Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah.
I know it's completely random, but I just...
I'm glad I know my girls better than these questions.
Yeah.
And the last one, come on, I have to nail one of them.
I think you're going to be able to get this one, but I saved the best for last.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Did you, in fact, enjoy giving me this interview?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Yeah, I got one.
That is the correct answer. Tom, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the interview. That is all now for this episode of the Redhawks Coaches Show. Stay tuned for our next one.